Hi there. This is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you from North Key Largo. I'm here with Jenna Kelly.
This is actually regular Key Largo. He keeps saying that.
I keep saying North Key Largo. You know, it just gives us more thing. From downtown Key Largo.
From downtown Key Largo.
Center City, Key Largo.
We're not North
Because there's
Key Largo.
no center to Key Largo. Just like that
And-
fucking lady from Chicago that gave me a hard time asking for the shopping district one time. And he said, oh, what do we need shopping? Oh, the Trade Winds Plaza, there's some stores there, but I don't know. So I want to walk. I said, you can walk. It's not that much. So, no, there's like 50, 60 stores. And I said, maybe between here and Islamorada and all that. Yeah. She goes, no, on one street. I said, are you thinking Key West? Did you confuse? Did you think we were only like 2 miles long and that was it? And then you're mad at me. Because I lived in Philadelphia a year ago. I knew that it was that before I moved here. I knew.
You know,
but we're talking about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Cubans.
We're going to talk about Cubans and the Cuban migration.
In the best way, in Cuban migration.
And
I know when you say that at Cubanos, you know, and say like stuff like that. I have a lot of friends of mine that are Cubans. I have Mexican friends. I have Cuban friends. I have a friend of mine, Danny, who's Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican friends. We have Argentinian friends. We have all kinds of.
Yeah, all types. But the biggest
friends. We have Polish friends.
Well, I was talking about Latins right now.
We have all kinds of friends.
No, we do. African Americans, yes. Forgot about that.
Absolutely.
But they're American. I just call them Americans. They're all Americans.
Well,
almost
we're all
the people
Americans.
we're talking about.
We live here.
Even all.
Yes.
So South Florida in itself has a much in the last 60 years has seen a great. I'm not going to do a
Influx.
Well, let's go back hundreds of years. Originally, the Spanish settled here. St. Augustine was a Spanish colonial city.
Yes.
For years. It was the oldest city in North America. Oldest European settled city in North America. Oh, that's because there were Native Americans that had cities here, especially the Aztec, the Mayans,
Which hail from Mexico.
Anigazi or whatever that stuff in Southwest.
Aztec Mayan is Mexico.
What's it in there? Near Arizona, there used to be a civilization there, a real old one that disappeared.
Oh, you're talking about an American Indian.
Well, they're all American Indian, you know.
Well, Aztecs and Mayans are not American Indian.
It's all North America, so they're American. They're indigenous people.
Okay. So
North America starts from the Panama north.
It's no the Central America.
You know, people don't even really want to say Central America anymore, but I mean, okay, let's go Mexico then.
Okay, so
Mexico and stuff like that.
no,
but
let's jump up to Arizona because I'm confused.
They're indigenous Americans.
Indigenous from Arizona would
But
be
even
what?
there, they're not. All it is 12,000 to 20,000 years ago. The invasion from Asia started. A migration started over the land bridge, and they came into North America and made their way all the way down to Tierra del Fuego, if I'm not correct. I'm just doing that. I'm pulling that out of.
I would.
Yeah,
what the
Argentina.
hell?
The tip of Argentina.
It's only the tip. It's okay.
It's just the tip. It's just the tip. It's all right. So, so they started coming. They got here much earlier than we did. Much earlier. There's truly no Native American other than maybe some mammoths, some birds, and things like that. It's funny when people talk about iguanas as being. There's very few. There's very few native.
And
the history of the world is always.
The Navajo was the big one, right? Navajo.
No. In Southwest, there was one before. There was one. Yeah, from
Navajo.
Jenna's talking to people that don't have a mic.
Apache.
She's talking to people right now.
Sorry, I was getting information from Papa.
No, there was a large civilization that disappeared before we arrived, before the Europeans arrived. That was in southwestern part of the United States, and. Yeah, we're fairly well advanced, and there was some kind of climatic change that ruined their farming civilization. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. And the main, so what happened is the Europeans came here, and so Florida, the first people came here were native indigenous Americans or Native Americans, and then the Spanish, and then the acquisition by the former British colony, now the United States acquired it.
We were talking about the Cuban infiltration.
Well, yeah, and the Keys unique. The Keys unique to the rest of the South. The one unique thing about the Keys.
Well, first of all,
let me explain the history on this.
An archipelago.
Key West never, during the Civil War, Key West always remained in the Union. Always remained. There was never a time where the Confederacy controlled Key West. So the Keys are insular compared to South Florida. And since 60 years ago, there were always a Latin influence in Florida and Tampa. There was Cuban migrants that would come here, and they made their cigars and stuff like that. But the huge influx came right after Castro started throwing over the Batista government. And then you had the opponents come over here. So it was a large influx of...
Is that the 50s? 40,
late 50s. Late 50s, 59, 60, and 61. Because they started falling apart. It was over. It was over by the time Kennedy took over. Castro was in charge for at least a year or two. And then there was another influx, and this is where there's some dispute going on. A lot of people that wanted to throw shade at my Cuban brothers, they'd say that Castro opened up the prisons and let every undesirable Cuban out. But that's not necessarily the whole picture, because there was a lot of Cubans who were opponents of Castro that were in the Muriel Lift too. If you were some of the people that were in prison because they opposed the regime, not just because they were criminals. Now, if you call someone I think that's a false positive. If you disagree with the government and you decide, well, now you're a criminal, yeah, that's not the same, is it? Right, Jenna? Are you with me or not with me?
For Papa, because he's
that's all right.
Retired trooper.
Do you hear that part?
I did hear that part.
Yeah, because you're not a real criminal just because you oppose who's in charge.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and so they came for. I believe you got me piss off some people. They added to the melange of cultures here. I mean, it made South Florida heavily Latin, and so it's as much a Cuban. It's a Cuban American culture in South Florida. Miami-Dade, it's the center of it. It's the capital of, after Havana, the largest concentration of Cubans in the world. And
I would agree.
Yeah, and given their druthers, if they had the resources, they'd probably be able to take back the whole island if with how committed they are against them. But they're a lot of their children and grandchildren and great grandchildren right now. I know some. We down here. It's in the middle. We're still in the middle of the the beginning of the mini season, and we get a lot of people coming down here from it. It turns out, that small group of people. There's a small group of people that cause most of the problems. And when you're in a place that is heavily Cuban, you think that problem is a Cuban problem. And the same thing happens when there's an African-American community. And if you're in an African-American community and there's crime, it's most likely committed by an African-American. But if you're in let's say an all-white community, let's say in West Virginia, there's some badass white people, poor white people that commit a lot of crime. Some bad people. And in all these other countries of the world, Poland, Italy, Sweden, Norway, their prisons are full of people that are Norwegian, Polish, Italian, and things like that. It's just the way it is. So there's no group of people, and we were just discussing before that about Australia being the prison colony, the penal colony for the British Empire. Originally, the United States was. Georgia was a big thing. They used to send it to Georgia, and South Carolina was they send their prisoners over and say, you know what, listen, I know we could do it. And instead of spending our time keeping our prisoners here, we'll just send them over to the United States and have them work in the fields. plant tobacco and things like that. And until they figured out doing cotton, and then they figured out how lucrative the slave trade was, the triangular trade. So, but right now, many of our politicians are Cuban American. Marco Rubio, our Congress person is a Cuban American. There's not so much down in the Keys, though. The Keys did maintain its, I couldn't even call it cracker culture.
These are old white people that.
Yeah, they're from the north.
Old white.
They're from the Midwest. They're from all these stuff, but it's not a Southern culture. But they do have the Cuban. We do have the little Cuban stores with the making up the Cuban lunches and stuff like that.
Oh,
that's great. Cuban coffee, Cuban bread, Cuban pork, dirty rice. Dirty rice is rice with black beans, onion, peppers, whatever. If I knew how to make it, I would be making it myself.
You're not a Cuban. It's okay. You don't have to know how.
You know what? I incorporate other. I piecemeal pick from other cultures. I like it. The one thing I probably won't do is I probably won't borrow anything from Indian culture, and that's Asian Indian. Not because I have a problem with Asian Indians. I don't like curry. My sister fed me curry one time, some meal. I every time I always come back. I must be like a broken record. And we're going to get back to this Cuban thing. But she fed me curry one time. And I lived 30 miles away from my house when I was visiting her, and she was feeding me lunch. And on the way home, from the time I got on the turnpike to the time I got home, I needed to use the facilities.
Bathroom.
The 2 and 2.
Yeah.
I needed to go too bad. I barely made it. It was like I was on a cork for about 35 minutes waiting that. And I couldn't eat anything with curry. I don't even like smelling curry anymore. So let's get back to Cuba. What were you going to say about the Cuba? You had a whole bunch of stories talking about it when I started doing it. You didn't go into it. You got distracted.
No. It's just that
come on.
the culture is a little difficult to get used to.
Well, they're big on the family over there.
And so am I.
Yeah.
But it's disrespect. There's
Well, a lot of them seen, a lot of times just think of this. Think about in New York and stuff like that. You think it, because they do their own thing, they don't really think about asking people. When they do the party, I do a party, and these people don't like partying. That's their problem. They don't like partying until 2 in the morning. We like partying until 2 in the morning. Well, that's their problem. They're living in my world, not theirs. That happened with almost every culture that came here. The Irish, the Italian, the Polish. When they came in big groups, they found power in their solidarity, and they get together and they do their own thing, and they say "fuck you," because in a lot of places when they get right, no, that's what they do.
If that's what they want.
Once they mature, it matures. No, but once when I say they're not immature, but once their place in society matures to a level that they're integral to it, like Sons of Italy, right?
Well,
and hello, Papa Joe.
Being born in Miami.
Hold that mic a little closer, please.
My neighborhood was Cuban, Irish, Jewish, and Italian.
Yeah.
And each of those cultures were based on respect and traditions and community and family. And so the Cubans that came here and had been here, and then the Cubans that came immediately as the Castro regime was gearing up immediately after, the first ones that fled, these were people that I found no different at all from, and their stories no different than my family stories from Italy during the war. And they were cohesive. Like Italians, they stuck amongst Italians, Cubans stuck amongst the Cubans, and that was not anything unusual, but they were also community-oriented, and you knew your neighbors, and it was based on respect. You raised your children with respect. I mean, there was no difference in that Latin culture than my Latin culture. We've since called it a Hispanic culture because of the Spanish background versus just Latins. But Latin culture is no different than, the needs of a family, what a mom and a dad want for their children are no different. I don't care what culture you're from. What you're talking about, crime in various cultures. Every culture has crime. But I found that there is a constant that alters the amount or the percentage of crime in a culture, and that constant is poverty.
Yep.
And the more impoverished a group is, the more disconnected a group is. Generally, you have a higher tendency of crime, and the crime is perpetrated upon their own, primarily. So...
Just like the Cosa Nostra, when it came into the United States, it started protection rackets, whatever they did inside their community, and eventually, they go outside. Obviously, the Russian, the Irish mob, the Russian mob in the 70s and the 80s, where the Russian government started releasing some of they called them the refuseniks. People that they said they were opponents to the government, but encased in some of them were Russian mobsters. And what a lot of times what they do when they come over here, and especially it turns they have ties to their home country too. And right now, the Gambino family is trying to reestablish ties. Sicilian or either Sicilian families are trying to reestablish ties between them and Sicily. Are trying to reestablish because that was broken because there was a savvy Sicilian prosecutor or law enforcement officer that saw that there was a way. He saw the big picture on how to go after the Cosa Nostra, and he did it. And you remember seeing videos of the guys they're having the trials, and they're all in the jail cells. You ever see that in Sicily? They're at a trial, and the guys don't stand behind a desk. The criminal is in a cell in the court because they're considered so dangerous. They couldn't even put them in shackles and bring them out. They had they'd have soldiers all around the courthouse. It was that lawless. They said they kill. Oh my God, they were so bad. But much like in Colombia, much like in Ireland, there's nobody in Chicago in the 1920s and 1930s. It's not unheard of in the United States here. So we always kind of when you call some
weren't the Gambinos from the 1930s?
No, Gambinos ran it until
right, Papa?
From the 1930s, but they're still around. Oh, you didn't know that?
No, I thought they were from the 30s.
I actually had the what would you
hold that close?
The benefit of, or the honor of arresting
a Gambino.
Yes,
Papa is a retired trooper.
Yeah,
and it was for the usual racketeering was one of it, and it involved money laundering and dope, and that was right here in Miami. And these are things that when you lose your perspective,
yes,
and when you become aggravated by the day in and day out things, it's real easy to take your finger and say, "Oh, those people." Those people, yeah. That's what I was trying to equate. So because there's such a high percentage of people down here are Cuban, you don't. It's easier to spot them. But if you look on Keys SO and stuff like that, there's tons. Proportionally, the same amount is equally represented. Is equally represented. And let me give you a little note on something. Jeffrey Epstein? Yes.
Is he going to be rooming with El Chapo?
Well, he'll be in the same prison.
He's in the same prison as El Chapo.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, guessing. And Jeffrey Epstein, a American billionaire and a Mexican drug lord. Now, if you can't see two, and Jeffrey Epstein just happens to be, he could very well have been Irish American. He happens to be Jewish, but he could very well have been Irish American or Polish or any other group. But what I'm just saying, you could pick that. And that guy did human trafficking. That's human trafficking. The guy's under indictment, he was still dating, he said to his place in, was it Mexico or wherever his resort, his island was, he had an island, they joke about him landing while he's under indictment with a plane load of girls.
Yeah, he never stopped.
He never stopped.
So he was a serial sex offender.
He blatantly did it in front, in the open.
He's out on parole. The idea is...
I would speak right now, but
not now. He's not. They refused the parole.
My chin's on the floor.
Now they refuse. You're saying you're speaking about
first time.
He was out on parole. Yeah.
The attorney, the United States attorney out of Miami, lets him have this sweetheart deal where they don't even notify the victims of the deal, which is a violation of court rules, and they let him actually go to work 12 hours a week, which means 4 or 5 days a week he gets to go to his office. And evidently he also went to his island. He went to his 5-story mansion in Manhattan, and he's ordering up young girls. I mean, not young as in young adult girls.
14.
Children.
14, 13, 14,
He's a serial sex offender. He's a loony. And so he deserves to be, behind bars forever.
No, the way I bring it on there is like if you were going to pick a group down here, like people have a way to paint with a very wide brush, and go and say, "God damn Cubans." Well, you know what? I mean, it's nothing like. I mean, some really good Cuban music. I mean,
listen,
some Cuban food. It's very exciting.
Cuban culture, I'm sorry, would be a boring podunk because that's what it was. Now, some people say, well, it was nicer when it was, a quiet town.
Mm-hmm.
No, but Miami is a metropolitan. It's the center in this hemisphere for South American commerce.
3 minutes.
And it is a very important city. And without, not just Cubans, but without Hispanic in general influences, Miami is a sleepy nothing zero town. And geographically, it's not set up to be a zero town. It is perfectly situated to be the focal point of South American, Central American commerce. It's just grown that way. And unfortunately, it's also grown with the bad parts that come out.
I love a lot of the positive parts. I love it. I love the
I know. Just like part of the thing that makes it exciting. Just like New York.
They're so loving.
Just like New York.
They come to you, and I'm a white girl. Well, I'm a brown girl up north, but down here I'm a white girl. And they give you kisses and they hug you, and I love them. And there's so many of them I just adore.
Listen, Linda.
Listen, Linda.
You can talk a little bit like everybody around you.
I can do it.
You're missing out.
It's okay. I always tell everybody in my office I know 3 words in Spanish.
Okay, I think what?
They say, do you speak Spanish? I said, yes, I know 3 words. And I'm a finance director, remember people. So I said, firma aquí, which means sign right here. Iniciales aquí, which means initial right here. And my 3rd word is cerveza. So I think it's a perfect time to
I think it is. It certainly is. And say hello to my little friend.
Say hello to my little friend.
Okay, we're going to be taking a little break right now.
Whether you're one of our regular visitors to the Florida Keys or you can't wait to visit for the first time, you'll want to stay up to date on everything that's going on in the Florida Keys. To learn all the secrets, tips, and the stuff we don't talk about to anyone but each other, visit 43keys.com. Sign up for our newsletter and never miss any of the exciting things we have planned for you. That's 43 Keys, the number 4, the number 3, keys.com.
We're back. Just during the break, Papa Joe and Jenna and I, he prompted me about the wedding I went to, and I did speak about it on a previous episode about the amount of food that they served at the wedding in Poland, and it was an inordinate amount of food, and as a younger man, I said I could eat a lot as a younger man, not as much as I I'm definitely not. I'm not about one half capacity as I used to, but now I still a big eater, but not nearly as much. Almost every culture, Papa Joe, right? I mean, in the United States, every culture, when you have a wedding, it's like they want to see how much they can feed you. You were talking about you went to 2 weddings in Italy and 1 in France, right?
3 actually in Italy, 2
3
in the south, 1 in the north. And
You
then
said
one-
of Bordeaux,
and
yeah.
in Bordeaux, in France.
And each one, in the first one, you said
7 courses.
7 courses. So what we got? It's interesting because we got this thing in my head right now. The United States, whenever Europeans come over here and say, "You Americans make your plates are so big and your portions are so big," but our experiences in Europe right now, and going to a thing
For weddings, anyway.
for weddings, yeah. But I mean, how many calories can you eat and how they only carry on? Why do you have to consume 5,000 calories? You only really need 2,500, 2,600, 2,800, depending on your size and how active you are. I mean, you're not doing yourself any good. It's not like you're spreading it out over 2 weeks.
But it's
a status thing.
no, because food is so much part of the culture. And sharing of food is part of the culture. And the celebration of a wedding that feeds, culture drives those events. So, yeah, Europeans are very frugal with their portions,
Yeah.
and they don't eat a lot, and they're very,
Not Central Europe, I'll tell you that. Because I've gotten meals over there. They were definitely pretty big. I had a burger.
Right.
I went to a place and they go, I seen a burger and the prices are so cheap. So I'm at this place and looked like they said they made all their food, none of it was frozen and make it fresh. So they had a cheeseburger. I want to try their cheeseburger. Now, first of all, they cook it well done. And it had a cheeseburger and they had a double cheeseburger. I said, I'll take the double cheeseburger. Well, that was like one of those monster food things they got. It was. I have this 16-ounce can of beer, and it was pretty much as high as that. You know what high as that can? And how do you bite in this? You can bite this part, bite this part. I mean that's the height of the burger, and I realized at that point can say nothing to Americans. This was not a big food eating place. This wasn't the Golden Corral or anything like that. I just went in there. I saw the price. I said, "Oh well, this burger's $6 with fries." With fries, I'm going, "Oh well, it can't be. How big could it be?"
But when you live there,
Yeah.
and you're in their homes,
Yeah,
they don't eat that. Those are usually in restaurants. Most of those restaurants cater to a transient group, usually tourists. Italy, for instance, because most of my time was spent in Italy, they're very savvy. They understand that Americans have big appetites, and the first thing an American's going to complain about is a small dish of pasta. If they fed you what they eat in their own homes, trust me, I've listened to, like in Rome, on the piazzas, in the cafes on the piazzas, Americans do not hesitate to just begin bitching about what is this? This is not enough. Right down to what is it you don't have ketchup? I mean, I've heard it all. I've heard it all. And now, when you go and you're living there, and as a child, I would spend 3 months at a time there. They are small. They're whatever the portionalities are. What you need, it's fine. It fills you, but it's not like, say, it's not just pasta. It's going to be pasta. It's going to be a little meat. It's going to be salad. After dinner, there's fruit. There's you consume a lot, and it's usually very well balanced. When the weddings, for instance, my one cousin gets married in Naples in a beautiful resort on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean. It's the most picturesque.
the guy that wrote Pinocchio was the house on the lower part, and then you said above it was pillboxes from World War II, right?
Right. So at the very bottom, near the water, was the house where that story was written, where the author wrote it, and because he's a national treasure, the state builds a house over the house to preserve it. And then as you come up that cliff, there's the pillboxes from World War II.
Yeah.
Because Naples, that was one of the
Axis.
very hard-fought
Yep.
lines in the American encroachment up the peninsula. And then on the top is the resort. And 7-course meal. And I found myself getting angry, mad at the 4th, and by the 5th course, it yet another plate of food, and huge plates of food. And the reason why it's different is because 2 reasons. It's a celebration,
Yeah.
a wedding. You have all your family. And to show that you've made it, to show that you're successful, it also shows that as a man, you're capable of caring for the woman. So you're going to. This is the subliminal message is your daughter is safe with me. So everything is on the grand scale. Unfortunately, when you're sitting there as a guest, you're 7 courses, and of course, there it's grappa, which is a fermented wine. It's potent as hell.
It's made from the residue of winemaking,
Right.
and they use it's rather than foment, it's distilled.
Oh yeah.
It's a distillant.
It's like drinking fire.
It's a distillant. Yeah, it's a distillant of the residue from winemaking. I had grappa before. It's like really hard vodka.
It's harsh.
It's harder than vodka.
Burns going down. Now there's some really refined grappa that
Yeah,
it's a little
you filter.
smoother.
Yeah,
But you're not a man in Italy if you drink that. I mean, if you're gonna and the men drink grappa, you wouldn't find there would be very few women that step up to a bar
Right.
and say, "Give me grappa."
Mm-hmm.
So that's flowing. That would be like shots,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then of course there's wine, and then there's other distilled spirits there. There's bourbon and rum and
yeah.
scotch and everything else. So and of course there's like any celebration. There's dancing but it goes on. It went on late afternoon, did not end till well after midnight, and so that was one cousin's wedding. The next year, I go back for his. It's actually his cousin.
Yeah.
You could say it's like my other cousin. Well, he had to outdo his cousin, so instead of 7 courses, he had 9 courses, and. The bar was bigger. Everything was bigger. The band was bigger. He just had to. He couldn't just say, "Well, I'm as successful as my cousin. I'm more successful."
Uh-huh.
The culture plays in that. In Bordeaux, and the one in northern Italy was a little more refined. Mm-hmm. And I know that aggravates some Italians. The difference between southern Italians and northern Italians, but it was in a more formal. Venue, let's just say that.
When you say northern, was it way north?
Is in Milan.
Oh, that is way north.
That is
oh
way
shit!
north.
Holy shit!
And it was somewhere around 5 courses. It was a little more doable,
Yeah.
as far as not getting mad at how much food you were eating. But Bordeaux mimicked my first cousin's.
Oh, really?
wedding. The food was just endless food, endless booze, endless dancing, joking. When they open the doors to a celebration, that's everyone's time to shine.
Yeah.
And they don't hold back. I've been to towns. There's a town in Tuscany. It's a medieval town.
Uh-huh.
It's on a hilltop, and they have a pig festival every year.
Yes.
And there's hogs that roam wild in Chianti, and once a year they thin the flock because they damage the vineyards, and they have a pig festival. A lot of towns do this, but this one particular town I was at was like the best one at it. They've been doing it for, I don't know, and I'm not kidding, almost 1,000 years.
Yeah. Okay. That would
It's
make
not
sense.
unusual there, right? The entire town, there's like 40 houses on top of this hilltop. Mm-hmm. Everyone opens their doors. They put tables out on their balconies, their living rooms, their terraces, and everyone gets a pig, and every family has a family recipe for cooking pig that's as old as the town, because these families, they're not transient. They trace their lineage back. So the whole town opens up. There's parades, fireworks, and it's a free-for-all with food.
Yeah.
And you just go from house to house to house. And so when Europeans celebrate food, or if food is involved, my experience is they go all out. You're going to just eat a lot. However, on a day-to-day, you're living there, you're going to school.
See, this is the one thing I don't fucking understand. How in the hell, when I was younger, I was the guy that ate 64. I could eat 64 chicken McNuggets in a contest, in a seating. And that's before I knew it was in a contest, I ate 2 Big Macs before that. But you got to be in training. You got to keep on doing it. If you guys go see the 4th of July eating contest, the Coney Island one, those guys are doing that every week. If you don't do it, then you lose your abilities. I don't quite understand how you can eat a little all the time, which you really don't. I mean, right now I don't eat. Well, I ate a lot. I ate a fucking lot today. I ate like a fucking Italian. I made this past week. I made a big pot of gravy, big thing of meatballs, 3 packages of spaghetti.
Thank you for calling it gravy, by the way.
Okay. And I made it up, and I put it in a bunch of Tupperware and stuff like that and put it away. Because I heard the studies done that if you chill pasta, it's healthier for you because it becomes a more complex starch when you reheat it. So I'm doing it. And I've been eating it for 7 days. And I'm just about done with it. So what I do today, I had a day off. I made a big pot of beef stew. And 3 hours after, and I started eating it, and I ate and ate and ate and ate. I ate and ate. Now I'm back. Like tomorrow, if I wanted to, I could probably eat a lot. It takes a while. You got to get back into it. I think I got back into shape, eating shape, when I was over in Poland, because every fucking place you went, someone's going to offer you food. Every house. I love my friends in Poland, and we went over a house. As soon as I'm driving, and the same people that tell me they got a 0 tolerance for alcohol, so don't have if you are driving, do not drink. Do not have a drink. And I did that. I go like this. I figured that was the safest thing to say. Hey, listen, do you put up vodka or wine? And go, oh, I'm driving. And they go, wait, you're the one that told me before I came over not to drink and drive, and you're still trying to push the drink, because then we'd have to sleep over their house. But then they're giving you cake.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and whatever. Cake. I think we forget that sometimes, that when someone comes over, my grandmother always used to do that. She'd put out cookies. One of my friends' mothers in high school, one of my best friend, a guy I room with in college, his mother came over one time, and my mother made her a cup of coffee and brought her out a piece of cake. And she almost cried. Not because she was touched that, people still do that stuff. She remembered as a little girl that. Right. And this was back in 81, 82. People had stopped doing that. Then when someone comes over, we do the drinks. We do the drinks, but not the food.
Well, company's coming.
Yeah.
My mom would say, company's coming. Yeah. When I learned to drive, company's coming, go. I don't have time to bake, because she would bake a cake.
Yeah, go get
a coffee cake. And if you didn't have coffee and coffee cake, cookies, you were not. You just weren't a good host or hostess. It was an expectation. It was nice, because what did you do? You went there. You sat around the table. You talked. You had company over. Mm-hmm. You chit chatted, and then everyone knew. Hey, I'm not here all night. It's time to go. Everyone had a family.
Yep.
Now it seems to be more like the niceties, the formalities.
Yeah.
The frilly stuff is gone. It's, pop open some beers or pour some drinks, and Usually, the homeowner has to say, "Hey, I gotta go to work tomorrow. I'm going to bed." Whereas when I grew up, you never got to that point.
Well, yeah, I had a roommate.
Never.
I used to have growing up when I got out of the Navy and stuff like that. Whoever your roommate was, I had a roommate who was working in the service industry, and I had a regular job. I had to get up. At 7 in the morning, and it'd be like 2 o'clock in the morning, and then all of a sudden, fucking people rolling into the apartment right there. I'm like, fuck! What? You got to be kidding me! Same thing in college. In college, I was in NROT, Navy ROTC, and Thursday morning was the early day. I had to be up at 5, uniform, ready for drill and inspection. 6 o'clock. I'm a college kid living in a fraternity house because already beer and all that stuff. So you got to still be disciplined enough to fucking wake up in the morning. The fraternity guys had the toughest to do it when it had to do things like that. And I got my ass up. And I remember one night, one of those early days, my roommate came in and he put on Moby Dick. Led Zeppelin, Moby Dick. Nice guy, Tom Brown, man. I love Tom Brown. He was a good guy. He was a cool dude. But he smoked a little weed. And he wanted to hang out with his girlfriend. And I'm trying to sleep. And he's hanging out. He's listening to Moby Dick. Now, if you're going to fuck your girlfriend, why you put on the music? Coming up there smoking weed. And first of all, he's smoking all the weed. He's coming up there. I got to take I'm worried about getting a contact high. You know what I mean? And just screw your girlfriend. And we had these, we did space savers. We made
like bunk beds?
Yeah, where you opened up the bottom and you put your desk underneath and shit like that.
Yeah.
Or the couches underneath. And we put our desk on the other side, too. So I'm like, I'll pretend to be asleep if you're going to fuck her and stuff like that. That's fine, man. It's like, I didn't know if he was trying to get me out. I said, I got to be up in 4 hours, man. And then he goes in. All of a sudden, it kept on creeping up. Moby Dick, I hear the drums. I say, how long is this? I never heard it before.
See, but if you got out a coffee cake and some coffee, maybe he'd go home.
Well, he did go. He did leave because I got up and broke the record.
Hey, I gave you coffee cake.
Here's
your coffee.
No, he's my roommate. He's my roommate. He's my roommate. Yeah, but it's funny how the traditions go with that. I understand you're going to spend a lot of money at your wedding, and then you're impoverishing yourself.
Essentially.
Going in debt because the groom at the wedding I went to was telling me how much money he spent. It was a significant amount for there. It would be similar to them spending, the way they earn money over there, $25,000. And they're not wealthy people. Not wealthy people, but they went so far out for it. That band was incredible. Everything was going on. And I'm sure that happened in yours.
Right.
And I go, well, I mean, we're reasonable people. We realize they're just starting out. We tried to give. I think we gave them a pretty big gift. Try to recoup for everything that they spent, and I go, holy shit! I go, what? But there's no way. I mean, he tried to throw the ring in there. I said, the ring, that's all you, buddy. The ring's on you. You're not going to recoup your gift with that. Or the photographer. That's yours. Photographer used. But food, entertainment, rental thing, that's on us. Yes, I understand that. But the other stuff you want to do, honeymoon, all that stuff, that's all on you. But I don't get it in a reasonable sort of way. Meaning, like, how many calories can I eat enjoyably in a day? 3,500 to 4,000. If I space it out and overeat all day, I can overeat maybe 1,500. I mean, I think at my size, I'm supposed to be 2,700 calories. So I could probably do a little more over that. How about you?
I don't know the calories. I eat one, maybe twice a day, which I know is not the healthiest, but
Who's to say what's healthy?
Well, I don't know, but everyone says break up your meals. You should eat often and smaller amounts, but
depends
often.
on how big it is.
I've never been good at that. I wasn't raised that way.
Mm-hmm.
Dinner's always been dinner. You eat your big meal, and if you have lunch, it's just a sandwich, nothing big. So it's kind of what I do now. Is I have dinner, and when I cook,
yeah,
brother, I cook. When you said gravy,
yeah,
and beef stew.
Yeah.
You know, you can ask my partner when I make a gravy. Ask Jenna. It's 6 cans of crushed tomatoes, meatballs, sausage, chunks of beef. I mean, and there's enough
Is there a good
sauce to last
sausage up
you
here that you can
weeks.
get? Is there a good sausage you can get? How's that stuff at Publix?
Yeah, well, okay. So the sausage I use that I like, to my taste, is believe it or not, it's the Roman brand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It's good.
Now I've also tried the Publix, not the Winn-Dixie, but the Publix Italian sausage. It's just as good. It's fine.
I thought it's something weird because I go, hey, I think it's pretty good.
Now the Winn-Dixie Italian sausage,
Roman.
Not
So what do you use?
horrible,
Hot or
No, mild.
I like the mild too. Yeah.
yeah. The hot has less fat in it,
Yeah.
and tends to get a little dry. So I like the mild. It has more fat. It tastes good. The fennel that's in there is just right.
How about with the meat mix when you make your meatballs? Do you do the lamb, pork, and thing, or do you just do?
Mostly, I just use a 85% lean ground beef. If I'm really making a what would be a formal gravy, it would be ground pork, ground beef. I don't use lamb. I don't use this. It's pork and beef.
Yeah.
Parsley chopped up fine. A little bit of breadcrumbs, some egg.
Just a little bit
salt.
of breadcrumbs?
Yes. I don't too much breadcrumbs. You'll dry them out.
Okay.
Now, there's 2 things in my family. One side of my family will take the meatballs and sear them in a frying pan.
Yeah.
Or the way
I do mine in the
did,
oven. Yeah.
My mom would make the meatballs and drop them right in the sauce and let them cook in the sauce.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I like both ways because my grandmother was part of that side that seared them,
Yeah.
and they have a slightly different taste, and I like it. But I also really like the way my mom.
I always thought that you could do that when I'm thinking, well, I put them in the oven, I put them on a thing, and I put them in the oven at 375 and brown them.
Right.
I just keep on turning them.
You can.
And
It just sears in the juice. If you fry them in a frying pan, it's better because you quick sear them.
A quick serum is better?
You quick sear them, and it keeps the juices in there. However,
I make so many meatballs at a time. It's so hard to. It's so hard to
it's
turn.
time consuming, isn't it? Because
Well-
you get the frying pan out, and you're.
Yeah, you got to keep on
and
doing it.
you're
Keep on
putting
doing
them
it.
in the sauce. Yeah, no. What I've learned to do.
So, but you can put them in. You can put them in raw right in there.
Well, you're going to make a gravy.
You're going to be sitting there for hours.
right? Every 20 minutes you make a
Yeah.
stir. Yeah, so just drop them in. And they cook fine. They're nice. They're juicy. I also put Parmesan
My
cheese
balls
in.
are so juicy,
Sweaty balls.
sweaty, salty balls. And you know what? Yeah, and you were going to finish. I'm going to give you the sign up. We're almost at 50 minutes, and Jenna, you have a good conversation over
Well,
there.
I just wanted to.
Hey, Jenna, talk about my sweaty balls.
I just wanted to talk about the sweaty chocolate balls.
No, but I made a bunch of balls last week, and they were a bit dry because my balls were a bit dry.
Why are your balls so dry? There's Neosporin
Too much. Neosporin doesn't. Gold Bond medicated powder.
That just dries your balls out even more.
No, it doesn't. It draws out the juice.
Juicy, sweaty balls.
Juicy balls.
Juicy balls.
Check out my juicy balls.
Oh, no.
Okay, I hate to end the show with the
your
sweaty
sweaty
balls
balls.
after we calling it cubanos, but I think we did address equanimously
Food.
how the
Food.
you know it's
You
food.
guys addressed food.
We did in the second half. We talked about
Yeah,
food.
but you're just making me hungry.
It's just a focusing in on culture.
Yeah,
culture, and it's just
Papa's gonna
amazing
make
how
me
much they
some
spend
cultural
on food when you can only healthy consume a certain amount, and even with all that food, with all the booze, you still. I mean, as I put it, I guess I was hurting the next day after the wedding.
No kidding.
But not as much as I should have been because of all the goddamn food. All the goddamn food. I shouldn't have said all the delicious food.
Did you gain?
And then I had to wait. What?
Did you gain a few pounds?
I didn't check. I'm going to check out.
Yeah. Are you
check
gonna
it
just,
Thursday.
teach another spin class or two?
No, you know what? My pants aren't any. I'm wearing these pants were tight before I went, and they're about the same. Not too tight. So I may have lost a little weight.
Ah.
Because I tend to get the little
Dancy?
squirtsies if I when I'm traveling.
So you have marinated sweaty balls.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I shower. I think I take a.
Somebody put the chocolate from his
If I-
hotel
I
room
know.
into his
Yeah.
butt cheeks.
Ooh.
Oh, is that like the reverse Reese's peanut butter cup thing? You put chocolate in my underwear. You put underwear in my chocolate. Okay. Well, this is Jim the Keys bartender. I'd like to thank Papa Joe. Papa Joe, say thank you.
Hey, thank you very
No,
much.
thank you. And you don't have to say thank you. What am I saying? And I'd like to thank our consummate co-host, Jenna Kelly, for
I
being
just
so
listen a
focused
lot.
today.
Say bullshit
So
once in a
focused.
while. Hi, guys. Bye, guys.
No, it works out good. Thank you. Till next time.